Prelude to Catastrophe, The World at War. By 1945, the world was engulfed in the deadliest conflict ever seen, World War II. Nazi Germany had been defeated in Europe, but the war in the Pacific raged on. The Empire of Japan, a brutal aggressor, had seized vast swaths of territory, inflicting horrific suffering. The Allied forces, led by the United States, Great Britain, and China, were determined to end the war, but an invasion of Japan loomed as a terrifying prospect. It was estimated that millions of lives, both military and civilian, could be lost. A mushroom cloud of controversy, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. A deceptive December of 1945 hung heavy over Hiroshima, a city teeming with industry and military significance. While the firestorms of conventional warfare had ravaged much of Europe, Hiroshima remained largely untouched. Little did its citizens know, they were about to become the ground zero for a scientific revolution with an unimaginable human cost. The Enola Gay and her deadly cargo, Ona, crisp morning of August 6, a B-29 bomber christened the Enola Gay roared down the runway of Tinian Island in the Pacific. Piloted by Colonel Paul Tibbets, the plane carried a crew of 12 and a weapon unlike any the world had ever seen, a uranium atomic bomb nicknamed Little Bo. The weight of history and the potential for unimaginable destruction rested heavily on their shoulders. A split-second of annihilation. At 8:15 a.m., the world changed forever. Little Bo detonated 1,900 feet above Hiroshima, unleashing a blinding flash and a fireball hotter than the sun. Buildings vaporized, steel melted, and a shockwave flattened everything in its path. Those caught directly below were instantly incinerated, leaving only shadows burned onto walls. Survivors on the periphery faced a fate almost as gruesome. Horrific burns, ruptured eardrums, and blindness were immediate consequences. But a more insidious horror lurked: radiation sickness. This invisible killer would claim countless lives in the days, weeks, and even years to come. A city in ashes, a nation in shock, the bustling city of Hiroshima resembled a desolate wasteland. Survivors wandered in a daze, their bodies ravaged and their world transformed into a living nightmare. Medical facilities were overwhelmed, and the infrastructure needed to care for the injured was decimated. The true scale of the devastation was only beginning to unfold. The debate raged on. The decision to use atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki remains one of the most controversial moments in history. Proponents argue that the bombs were a necessary evil, hastening the end of the war, and saving millions of lives from a potential land invasion of Japan. Opponents contend that Japan was on the verge of surrender, and the bombings were an act of barbarity that primarily targeted civilians. The debate continues to this date, with no easy answers. Nagasaki, the second tragedy. Just 3 days after the Hiroshima bombing, the United States dropped a second atomic bomb, Fat Man, on the city of Nagasaki. This plutonium bomb caused similar widespread destruction, further solidifying the horrific reality of the atomic age. The justification for the second bombing remains even more contentious, adding another layer of complexity to the historical narrative. The legacy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki marked a turning point in human history. The destructive power unleashed usher in a new era of fear and usher in the nuclear arms race that would dominate the Cold War. The long-term health effects of radiation exposure continue to be felt by survivors and their descendants. More importantly, these events serve as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of war and the responsibility that comes with wielding such immense power. Myths and misconceptions. An enduring myth is that the atomic bombs were dropped solely on military targets. In reality, the vast majority of casualties in both Hiroshima and Nagasaki were civilians. Another misconception is that the bombings definitively ended the war. While they undoubtedly played a role, the Soviet Union's entry into the war and Japan's deteriorating position were also significant factors. A call for peace. The stories of Hiroshima and Nagasaki serve as a powerful cautionary tale. They remind us of the devastating consequences, war, and the importance of pursuing peaceful solutions to conflict. The survivors became vocal advocates for nuclear disarmament, their experiences a stark reminder of the human cost of such weapons. Their stories are a testament to the enduring human spirit in the face of unimaginable tragedy. Truman's dilemma. The decision to drop the bomb. The Weight of a World at War. By summer of 1945, President Harry S. Truman found himself burdened with an unthinkable decision. World War II had ravaged Europe, leaving a trail of destruction and millions dead. The war in the Pacific, however, remained fiercely contested. The island-hopping campaign had been brutal, with American casualties mounting with each bloody conquest. The projected cost of a full-scale invasion of Japan was staggering. Estimates ran into the millions of lives lost on both sides. A race against time, and a technological gamble. Enter the Manhattan Project, the top-secret American program that had successfully developed atomic bombs. Truman, newly sworn in after President Roosevelt's death, was presented with this terrifying new weapon. Hope flickered. Could this be the key to ending the war swiftly and decisively, saving countless lives? That the bomb was untested, its true destructive power a terrifying unknown. Little Bo and Fat Man, the weapons of mass destruction. A race unlike any other, the Manhattan Project, shrouded in secrecy, was a scientific sprint unlike any the world had ever seen. Driven by the fear of Nazi Germany developing an atomic bomb first, a consortium of brilliant minds in the United States toiled away at unlocking the unimaginable power of the atom. The goal: create a weapon so devastating it would force an end to the war. The birth of Little Bo and Fat Man. Two distinct designs emerged: Little Bo, a uranium-based gun-tight fission bomb, and Fat Man, a plutonium implosion bomb. Little Bo was a marvel of engineering simplicity, relying on the forceful collision of two subcritical uranium masses to trigger a chain reaction. Fat Man, conversely, was a technological marvel, using precisely timed explosives to compress a plutonium core, achieving a far more efficient detonation. The inner workings of annihilation. Both bombs, despite their differences, harness the same terrifying principle: nuclear fission. This process splits atomic nuclei, releasing a tremendous amount of energy in an instant. The Hiroshima bomb, for example, unleashed the equivalent of 15,000 tons of TNT, a magnitude of destruction previously unimaginable. Beyond the blast, the invisible threat, the immediate devastation of the bombs, the firestorms, the flattened buildings, the horrific burns was only part of the story. A silent killer lurked within the mushroom cloud's radiation. This invisible force caused radiation sickness, a horrific illness that attacked the body's very core, leading to agonizing deaths in the days, weeks, and even years following the bombings. The debate over delivery systems. The debate surrounding the bomb's use extended to its delivery system. The B-29 Superfortress, a marvel of American aviation at the time, was chosen for its long range and payload capacity. However, some argued for a demonstration of the bomb's power before resorting to a full-scale attack on a populated city. This option, ultimately rejected, raises questions about the true motivations behind the bombings. A legacy of devastation and technological dread. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki usher in the nuclear age, a period dominated by fear and the threat of mutually assured destruction. The development of Little Bo and Fat Man marked a turning point in warfare, forever altering the way humanity viewed conflict and its potential consequences. Myths and the shadow of secrecy. An enduring myth is that the atomic bombs were simple devices. In reality, their development required groundbreaking scientific advancements and incredible engineering feats. Another misconception is that the exact workings of these bombs are fully known. The secrecy surrounding the Manhattan Project means some aspects of their design and construction remain shrouded in mystery. Chapter 5. Countdown to 0 Hour. The final preparations. A tense calm on Tinian Island. The summer sun beat down on Tinian Island in the Pacific, a stark contrast to the storm brewing within the hearts of the men stationed there. August 1945 hung heavy in the air, thick with anticipation and dread. In a specially constructed base codenamed Northfield, a small group of airmen prepared for a mission unlike any other. They were about to become the unwilling participants in a moment that would forever alter the course of history. Inside the Enola Gay, Colonel Paul Tibbets, a stoic and experienced pilot, meticulously inspected the B-29 Superfortress christened the Enola Gay. Nicknamed after his mother, this plane would carry the world's first atomic bomb, a weapon codenamed Little Bo. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on Tibbets and his crew. They were tasked with delivering a weapon of unimaginable destructive power, a weapon shrouded in both hope pending the war swiftly and horrifying uncertainty. Briefing for the apocalypse. INAT, tense briefing room. Tibbets and his crew received their final orders. The target, Hiroshima, a major Japanese industrial and military center. The mission parameters were clear: deliver the bomb and return safely. There was no room for error, no time for second thoughts. The weight of potential civilian casualties hung heavy in the air, a grim reality overshadowed by the desperate hope of ending the war. The Nagasaki decision and boxcars preparations. Meanwhile, another B-29, the boxcar, was being readied for a yet undetermined mission. The crew, under the command of Captain Charles Sweeney, remained unaware of the horrific weapon they would soon be entrusted with. News of a special bomb and a potential second target, Nagasaki, swirled amongst rumors, creating a tense atmosphere of anticipation. From breakfast to Bombay, the crew's preparations. Back in the Enola Gay, the crew engaged in routines both mundane and symbolic. Some made a breakfast heavy with unspoken anxieties, while others meticulously checked their equipment. The instruments that would guide them on a mission that could change the world. Weapons specialists readied Little Bow, a complex device still cloaked in secrecy. Tibbets, his face etched with worrying, delivered a final pep talk, his words a mixture of encouragement and grim acceptance. Taking off for a one-way trip, as dawn broke over Tinian Island. The Enola Gay taxied down the runway, the immense weight of its cargo straining the aircraft. The crew tensed, their emotions a cocktail of fear, determination, and a known sense of unease. Little Bow, a harbinger of both hope and devastation, was hurtling towards its target, setting the stage for a moment that would forever scar the world. Myths and the fog off were. An enduring myth is that the crews of the Enola Gay and boxcar fully understood the true power and potential consequences of their missions. The secrecy surrounding the bomb's development likely shielded them from the full scope of the devastation they were about to unleash. Another misconception is that the decision to use a second bomb on Nagasaki was made well in advance. Historical evidence suggests ongoing debate and shifting justifications within the American leadership. The meticulous preparations on Tinian Island stand as a chilling testament to the human capacity for both destruction and the desperate hope for a swift end to a horrific war. As the Enola Gay disappears into the horizon, we are left with a heavy sense of foreboding. A countdown to a moment that would forever redefine the concept of warfare. Chapter 6. Black Rain. The bombing of Hiroshima. A city awakens to a deceptive dawn. August 6, 1945. Dawned like any other in Hiroshima, a bustling metropolis teeming with life. Children played in the streets, factory workers prepared for their shifts, and the city hummed with the ordinary rhythm of daily life. Unbeknownst to its inhabitants, Hiroshima was about to become the stage for an event that would shatter their world and etch itself into the annals of history. A B-29 and a flash that blinded Thede. At precisely 8:15 a.m., a lone B-29 bomber, the Enola Gay, streaked across the clear blue sky. A hush fell over the city as the aircraft passed overhead, a fleeting anomaly in the peaceful morning. Then, in a split second, the world turned inside out. A blinding flash, brighter than 1,000 suns, ripped through the sky. The detonation of Little Boa unleashed a fireball hotter than the surface of the sun, vaporizing everything within a 1.3-kilometer radius. From city to inferno, a maelstrom of destruction. Buildings crumpled like paper dolls. Steel beams twisted and melted like wax. Those caught directly below were instantly obliterated, leaving only ghostly outlines. Etched onto walls, a horrifying testament to the bomb's unimaginable power. A monstrous shockwave, traveling at hundreds of kilometers per hour, flattened everything in its path. Firestorms erupted, engulfing entire neighborhoods in a sea of flames. Survivors on the periphery faced a scene straight out of hell. Horrific burns covered exposed skin. Ruptured eardrums left them deaf to the screams of the injured. And the blinding flash seared their retinas, plunging them into a world of perpetual twilight. Chapter 7. 3 days later. The bombing of Nagasaki. A city holds its breath. The shadow of Hiroshima. August 9, 1945. A mere 3 days had passed since the world witnessed the apocalyptic devastation unleashed on Hiroshima. News of the atomic bomb, a weapon of unimaginable power, had spread like wildfire, leaving a sense of shock and dread in its wake. In Nagasaki, another bustling Japanese city on the western coast of Kyushu, a fragile normalcy persisted. Unaware of the fate that awaited them, citizens went about their daily routines. A known unease lingering in the wake of Hiroshima's tragedy. A change of plans and Boxcar takes flight. Meanwhile, on the island of Tinian, a tense atmosphere gripped the crew of the B-29 superfortress nicknamed Boxcar. Originally designated as a weather reconnaissance plane, Boxcar was now thrust into a more sinister role. The initial plan for a single atomic bomb attack had shifted. Following the devastation in Hiroshima and Japan's continued resistance, the decision was made to drop a second bomb. Captain Charles Sweeney, Boxcar's pilot, and his crew received their orders to deliver a weapon codenamed Fat Man to a new target, Nagasaki. The fog of war and shifting justifications. The justification for the second bombing remains a hotly debated topic. Proponents argue that it was a necessary evil, a way to force Japan's surrender without the immense bloodshed anticipated from a full-scale invasion. Opponents point to the limited window between the Hiroshima bombing and the Soviet Union's entry into the war, suggesting a potential for a negotiated surrender without further use of atomic weapons. The decision, shrouded in secrecy and fueled by a desperate desire to end the war, continues to cast a long shadow. A second flash, a different devastation. At 11:02 a.m., the Nagasaki skyline was ripped apart by another blinding flash. Fat Man, a plutonium implosion bomb with a different design and little bow, unleashed its fury. While the immediate destruction mirrored Hiroshima, flattened buildings, firestorms, and horrific injuries, the specific terrain of Nagasaki played a role. Nestled in a valley, the bomb's effects were channeled, creating even greater devastation in some areas. Beyond the blast, radiation, and the lingering agony, similar to Hiroshima, the horrors extended far beyond the immediate blast. Black rain, laced with radioactive fallout, fell upon the already devastated city. Radiation sickness, with its delayed and agonizing symptoms, became a grim reaper, claiming countless lives in the days, weeks, and years to come. Survivors, haunted by the physical and psychological scars, faced a future forever altered by the bomb. Myths and the controversy. The second blast. An enduring myth is that Nagasaki was a solely military target. While the city housed some industrial facilities crucial to the war effort, the vast majority of casualties were civilians. Another misconception is that the bombing definitively ended the war. The truth is more complex, with Japan's surrender likely influenced by a combination of factors, including the Soviet invasion and the devastating impact of the atomic bombs, the human cost and the end of an era. The bombing of Nagasaki stands as a grim echo of Hiroshima, a stark reminder of the human cost of war and the devastating power unleashed by atomic weapons. The estimated death tolls in Nagasaki range from 60,000 to 80,000, with countless others suffering from radiation sickness and long-term health effects. With the fall of Nagasaki, a dark chapter in human history closed. World War II ended, but the nuclear age dawned, ushering in a new era of fear and the ever-present threat of nuclear annihilation. A world forever changed, a legacy of peace and remembrance. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki forever changed the course of history. They forced a global reckoning with the destructive potential of science and the importance of pursuing peaceful solutions to conflict. The survivors, forever marked by the horrors they witnessed, became powerful advocates for nuclear disarmament, their stories a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable tragedy. A bridge to the future. As we move forward, the legacy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki serves as a stark reminder of the consequences of war and the responsibility we face to prevent such tragedies from ever happening again. These cities, rebuilt from the ashes, stand as symbols of both human destruction and the enduring power of hope. Their stories compel us to work towards a future free from nuclear weapons, a future where peace prevails. Stay tuned for part 2 of the video. Please like, share and subscribe if you haven't already for some interesting videos coming along on the channel.